Hi there, it's Nicole for Lawn Fawn, and today I have a shaker card showcasing several of the new die collections that work with the Make Me Smile dies, which are these adorable faces that work in lots of the Lawn Fawn dies. I am using the Puffy Clouds and the new Shooting Star. I'm going to start by die cutting all of my elements from some watercolor cardstock. And I'm going to go ahead and die cut the faces from the dies as I am die cutting the shape. I'm going to use a little post-it tape to hold that in place to run it through the machine. So for the large cloud and the star, I'm going to be using the faces from the Make Me Smile. There are a whole bunch of different faces, so you can kind of choose whatever you like, or what works with the theme of your card design. I'm going to run these back and forth a couple times and then go ahead and pop these out. Now I do need to keep that little teeny tiny mouth from the cloud, from the face I die cut from the cloud, as I am going to do an inlay kind of style there and color in the face. Now from a larger sheet of watercolor cardstock, I'm going to die cut the large A2 size stitch rectangle die. This is an older Lawn Fawn die, probably my very most used die from Lawn Fawn. This is going to be the background of my shaker. I'm also going to die cut a transparency using that same size die. And then for my frame, I'm going to die cut one of these stitched rectangle die frames from some black cardstock. This is the largest sized frame, also A2 sized, so it's going to work great with my stitched rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and apply some distress inks to my background now. I'm using Chipped Sapphire and Peacock Feathers distress inks. Everything is going to be colored with distress inks. Instead of die cutting my elements from colored cardstock or patterned paper, I am actually coloring everything with distress inks. You could use whatever inks you want. I kind of wanted that distress look, so I'm going with the distress inks. I'm also coloring in that top ray for the shooting star with the Chipped Sapphire ink. Then I'm going to switch to my Peacock Feathers ink and ink up the bottom portion of my background, plus that middle layer from the shooting star. I'm going to blend these two colors together on my background panel really well. I'm using a scrap piece of paper to keep my fingers out of the ink. The watercolor cardstock tends to show finger marks pretty badly, so I try to keep my fingers out of the ink by just using a scrap piece of paper to hold on to it while I blend my colors. Once those are blended, I'll go ahead and really quickly color in again that middle stripe for the shooting star with the Peacock Feathers ink, and then my final piece with the Tumbled Glass distress ink. And then I'm going to take a distress sprayer and spritz my background panel with water from the distress sprayer. Oh, really quick, before I do that, I am going to take my Peacock Feathers ink blending tool and lightly color around the edges. I'm not going to ink it up with ink from the ink pad or anything like that. That's going to ensure it's really, really light. Now I'm going to spritz that background with water and blot it dry with a paper towel about 20-30 seconds after I let it sit for a little bit. And then I'm just going to dab over those rays from the shooting star, and that's going to distress those instead of actually spritzing them with water. Then I am going to add a little color to my star itself using mustard seed and fossilized amber distress ink. I'll start with the mustard seed ink and then switch over to fossilized amber. It's just going to give a little bit of a two-tone. I'm not going to color the whole thing with fossilized amber. I'll spritz it with water and then blot it dry as well. I did die cut the star and the cloud from black cardstock, and I colored in the mouth with barn door distress ink. Those solid cardstock pieces from black cardstock are going to be layered behind the faces on the star and the cloud. Next, I'm going to take my background, my transparency, and then add some glue dots behind the frame on the transparency. This is going to be a great way to attach this to my shaker frame or to the transparency. I need a strong adhesive, but I need something that's going to be thin enough. I could have used maybe like some tape. I have some thin adhesive tape, but these glue dots were laying out, so I just went ahead and put a whole bunch of them all the way around the frame, making sure I got some on the corners. And then I'm just going to pop that in place right over the transparency. I went ahead and did this first. I really should have stamped my transparency. This is actually the second video and the second card I created with this. My first video file was corrupted somehow, so I had to redo my card and I kind of forgot. So I'll show you what I did to fix that in a minute. I'm also going to take the glue dots, put those on the back of the cloud, pop that over my solid black cloud, and you can see the cute little face take shape, which is adorable as is. But I really love the addition of the little red mouth, and you'll see that that adds just a really great touch to this cloud as well. I left a little area along the edge without a glue dot, and that is so I can pop the edge of the cloud underneath there. All of my elements for the shaker are actually going to be on the front of the card. There's a little glue in the mouth area, and I'll take the quick stick tool, pick up the mouth and put that in place, and I just love how that looks. I am putting everything on the front, and then the inside of the shaker is going to be a ton of shaker sparkly goodness. I kind of like the look of that. I did this for a Simon Says Stamp card, I think last week or so, and I just really think it's kind of a fun, different kind of look. That way you definitely see all of the elements on the card, but you still get that great shaker feel. So it's just another way to create a shaker instead of having some of the elements inside. There's so many great ways to do this. I'm going to keep adding all of my elements. I added the smaller cloud, I added the rays for the shooting star. I'll go ahead and add my star layer to the black cardstock star layer and then attach that to the card. And that is going to definitely show me where I can stamp my greeting. One thing I do really like when I'm creating a shaker card is to make sure my greeting is on the front. I don't always do that, but I have found I really like that. I am going to take the Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen over my star, go ahead and clean off the tip of my Wink of Stella pen, and then I'm going to go around the edges of the clouds as well. You want to make sure you clean it off because it does pick up some of that color. Adds a little additional sparkle. But back to the greeting. That way the greeting is always visible and never gets covered up with the shaker material. So I am going to use a greeting here and use some white StazOn ink to stamp my greeting right on the transparency. It's going to make it really visible, especially once I get that shaker material in the card. I'm going to also use the stars from this stamp set and stamp a few additional stars. StazOn ink is really the only ink that I have found that's going to work really well for this. It's specially formulated to work on things like transparency, so it's not going to smear, it's not going to smudge, it is going to be definitely permanent. Here's where I actually lifted up the edge of my frame where it wasn't stuck down very good and stamped that star so you can just see a little peek of it there. That is the front of the card. I'm ready to start putting together the shaker now. Because the frame of this shaker is so super thin, I am trimming my foam tape basically into thirds. And I'm going to double it up all the way around. Doubling it up is just going to ensure that my shaker material can actually really move around good. I have done one layer of this particular foam tape before, and I just don't think that the shaker material moves as much as I like. I like the shaker stuff to really shake, so I go ahead and double it up almost every single time. Now, I didn't on this card, but if you wanted to, you could hide some foam adhesive behind any of those elements on the front, behind the clouds, the star, and just give your shaker a little more stability. I didn't do that, but you definitely could if that's like a concern for you at all. Especially if maybe you're sending it through the mail and you're worried that it might get banged up a little bit. That might just be a little bit more of a secure kind of way to send a shaker card. I'll finish this last side here. Double that up real quick. And then I like to take a powder tool and go around the edges of my foam adhesive. I'm going to go around those really good, kind of being really generous with that powder. That's going to help keep the sequins, the seed beads, the confetti from sticking quite so bad. It tends to really stick, so I like to use that powder tool for that. I'm using a generous portion of the Pretty Pink Posh Mini Silver Star Confetti, some 4mm sparkling clear sequins, and also the Silver Shimmer seed beads. Then I'm going to pull off all 4 sides of my foam adhesive. Being kind of careful there so none of that stuff pops out. And take my backer to my shaker, press around all 4 edges really good. Flip it over and shake it up. And you can see how great everything shakes inside of my shaker card then. So then all I have to do is take some adhesive, pop this on the front of a side fold card base, and my card is all finished. Thanks for joining me for this Lawn Fawn shaker card showcasing lots of the new Make Me Smile dies from the latest release. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos showcasing Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.